Good evening, everyone. I would like to call tonight's meeting to order. It is Tuesday, February the 23rd at 7 p.m. and we are conducting this meeting once again via Zoom. Would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Carl.
Here.
Councilmember Waldman.
I'm here, but I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Councilmember Weil.
Here.
Chairman Clark.
Here.
Mayor.
Here. Next item, please.
Item number 2, communications. Mayor, we have no written communications, but we do have the swearing in ceremony.
Okay. Sergeant McBride, I'm going to, when I get to the part where I'm going to state your name, I'm just going to say I, and then I'm going to say state your name, and then you're going to say, your name, okay?
Okay.
Okay, great. If you would kindly, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Daniel McBride,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess all the qualifications
that I possess all of the qualifications
to serve as sergeant
to serve as sergeant
for the city of Olivet, St. Louis County, Missouri,
for the city of Olivet, St. Louis County, Missouri,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Missouri
and the state of Missouri
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Olivet,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Olivet,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of this office
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of this office
by abiding by the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics.
by abiding by the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics.
As sergeant, my fundamental duty
As sergeant, my fundamental duty
is to ensure that the Olivet Police Department serves the community,
is to ensure that the Olivet Police Department serves the community,
protects the innocent,
protects the innocent,
and respects the constitutional rights of all.
and respects the constitutional rights of all.
I understand it is my responsibility and duty
I understand it is my responsibility and duty
to enforce the law courteously and appropriately,
to enforce the law courteously and appropriately,
without fear or favor,
without fear or favor,
malice or ill will,
malice or ill will,
never employing unnecessary force or violence.
never employing unnecessary force or violence.
I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith,
I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith,
and I accept it as a public trust to be held and honored.
and I accept it as a public trust to be held and honored.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone that wishes to say anything?
We're going to pin on the,
Okay.
but I just need to.
Zoom out?
We have a very special guest for the pinning ceremony.
Oh, nice.
Oops, I'm gonna come down a little bit and then I'm gonna try to go in.
Nice.
Fancy camera. Fancy camera.
Very nice. Wow, that's special.
Really beautiful.
Woo!
Yay.
If we give you a standing ovation, you'll only see our stomachs.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, and I
to
think
do.
if you guys wanted to do some pictures and with Sergeant McBride has other family members here as well.
Hello, other family members.
So I just wanted to let you guys know, I'm David Wolf. I'm the chief of the Olivet Police Department. And one of the people with Sergeant McBride is his father, Dennis McBride, who was a captain in Ferguson for 42 years. So
Wow.
quite an accomplishment. Obviously, a veteran law enforcement officer, and Sergeant McBride is following in those footsteps. And we're very, very excited for him. And we're looking forward to his future here as it continues with the Olivet Police Department.
I like the narrator thing. I can't see you. It's very super cool that you're narrating this.
Sounds like the whispers on the golf tournament.
Yeah,
right?
it's really
Coming up
super
from green,
cool.
it's putter.
You should do that as a side gig, dude. Very cool.
Called a narrator from Shawshank.
Face for radio.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and congratulations
Congratulations.
again.
Thank you.
Okay. If we are all ready and all zoomed into where we need to be, let's move on to the next item, please.
Item number 3, city managers report and staff reports.
Thank you. I'm gonna. Get this all ready for us. Good evening. I'm just going to do a few project updates. Always seems like a couple months have gone by and we kind of fall behind. The one thing I would like to say that all of these updates are also found in the planning and community development reports, staff reports. Those department reports contain just a ton of information. They've got some great graphics and pictures from the Public Works Department with regard to the snow. Parks has a lot of things. And then when we talked last couple weeks back about the new reports for the police department, that has just a ton of information. So the Oliver is where the old city hall used to be. That's the kind of the design. They've put in the footings, and the foundation work slowed down due to, this picture shows why, the snow. Firestone, this is the approved exterior design of Firestone along with the improvements at the fountain. We anticipate closing within the next 60 days. It's probably actually going to be closer to the next 30 days. Demolition and construction to begin September or spring of 2021. And it'll be a pretty quick construction because they're anticipating being open still in 2021. Olive Crossing, which is our biggest development, MSD is completing the work on that site. That was the work that they were doing there was for the 82nd Street improvements, sanitary line improvements that go from Olivet into University City. Ameren UE design work is complete, and that is just a really huge task. Those, again, as we talked about, those big utility poles and wires, that high voltage is going to be going underground. And so for them to have that design work completed and ready to go is just it's a huge accomplishment. And we all know that the TIF Commission was reconvened to look at an additional use of residential on the property. And that public hearing is March 29th at 7 p.m. And that will be via Zoom. We've started the FY22 budget process. We are having this week our second meeting with all the departments to discuss their goals, their objectives, and some of their key performance indicators. We'll be meeting in a couple of weeks again with the department heads to have a first blush at the budgets and the numbers that will go with those goals and objectives. And this will transition nicely to the March 24th city council retreat, when you folks will be looking at goals and also then kind of starting the discussion of the budget process of the budget. The Northeast Quadrant Traffic, the city engaged CBB to look at this Northeast Quadrant. And we're considering that kind of Dealman to Olive to this, to the city boundaries on the east and on the north. And what we're really looking at is how do we improve traffic both within and both an egress into this area. And, you know, we know that the folks over here in this area have kind of limited ins and outs. And so how can we improve some of that? What are some additional exits and entrances going north and south off of Olive, crossing Olive or going up? You know, currently we have the light at Price, there's a light at Collingwood, and then there's a light at Dealman. But there are other opportunities maybe in here to get some of the traffic, to give some additional access for people. You know, you have a lot of folks working up here. The Dealman Road, we've been looking at that and how does that intersection work, and you know, what are some things. Now, we're not going to end up with any big plan or engineered study, but what we're going to do is we're going to have, you know, come back to the council with the report and look at how we prioritize, you know, some of the options that the traffic engineers are able to give to us, and we can start planning this. A lot of these things, you know, are going to be big ticket items, and so we're going to look at how do they go on to and fit into our capital improvement plan. I'm going to bring all of these up. The city council workshop is next Tuesday at 7 p.m. That'll be via Zoom. Planning and Community Design Commission is March 4th at 7 p.m. The next regular council meeting is the 9th at 7 p.m. Park and Recreation Commission meets on March 17th at 7 p.m. Planning and Community Design Commission meets March 18th at 7 p.m. And the city council meeting is the 2nd of March is on March 23rd, March 24th. And we also have the work session. And March 29th, we have the TIF Commission meeting. I just couldn't fit everything on here. The other thing I would like to remind people of is that you may have seen it on social media. You'll see it on the city website. The city had an application for Transportation Alternative Program grant for $1 million, and that's to help fund the Centennial Greenway from Dealman to Warson Park. And we're in the last phase of that approval, and they are seeking public comment via the internet. And so there has been information on our website, on Facebook. I believe we've had it on Nextdoor. So there is there's a lot of links on how you can get in there and give that feedback. It's looking extremely positive. Typically, applications that make it to this far in the process are approved. But it's always best if we can hear from the citizens, and this is your opportunity to give public input into that process. With that, it was pretty short and sweet. It seems a lot busier than that, but I'd be happy to entertain any questions that the council might have.
Anybody have any questions for the city manager? Yes, Maxine.
When they start to demolish the gas station, are the tanks still underground, or because they haven't pumped gas in so long, are the tanks gone?
Those were removed several years back.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
And
No?
all of that brownfield work is now done as well, and they've got a clean paper on that site.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none. Let's move on to the next item, please.
Item number 4, city council reports.
I will start with Maxine. Sorry about that.
Okay, so I attended the Parks and Recreation meeting last week. And it was a good meeting. It was run by Jim Person, the new chair of Parks and Rec. And we covered a lot of territory. The director's report that is, I believe, part of the agenda notes tonight, where we talked, which referred to the prairie burn, the winter storm reports, the baseball RFP that's coming towards us tonight. They are having a spring break camp, which is the week of March 22nd to 26th, and they're using Circus Kaput, which always seems fun. And then they talked about some of the camp summer plans. And we then talked about the master plan. They had the 2 meetings where people could come and listen in and hear what's going on and ask questions for the updates. They had about 48 to 50 people at each of these park update meetings, which was excellent. And then on the website, and I think this is really impressive because not all communities do this, they're putting up the site plan for each of the parks. They're putting up the timeline. And then the plan is that as these things occur, they will be posting pictures and updates so that the whole community will constantly know where we are in the timeline. And the timeline is such that it will move it along and they'll be able to see where we are and what's happening. There'll be that for all of the 5 parks as well as the community center. And then we also, okay, beautiful, Barb, thank you. So it's, I think that's just really impressive and exciting. And the commission also discussed the master plan and how this, the master plan of the park commission and how this feeds into it all. We also led the discussion. We have a work plan for the parks, and I believe each commission has this. And this is something that Jim wants to make sure is actively moving forward. So they took the document that's been created and they're aligning the goals with the mission of the park commission. And they're aiming now to the action items in order to reach each of these goals. And a member from each of these goals or aspects has a park commissioner assigned to help fulfill those goals and to recruit other members in the community to help them work on them. So it was a really exciting meeting because people who have just attended meetings like were taking on responsibility. So everyone on the commission actually has an additional assignment when it comes to implementing the work plan. So it was an exciting step for the Park Commission. And we meet monthly and we're scheduled, like Barb said, for March 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
Great.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
We'll all be dressed in green.
Mhm.
Hopefully not
That
drinking.
was council
All of
member.
that, get it? I'm sorry.
Olivet Green. That's right. Olivet Green.
Okay, thanks. That's great.
Were there any questions for me? Thank you.
No.
Councilmember Carl?
I attended an Economic Development Commission meeting last night, but since the entire council was there and the majority of it was in closed session, I have nothing to report here.
Okay. Councilmember Waldman?
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the Planning and Community Design Commission meeting of February 18th. At that meeting, there was some new business that was dealt with at 9520. The Plant Haven, for its 10th year, is going to go ahead and set up on the parking ground area of the bowling alley. Hopefully this will be their last year, but that was approved. There was a discussion of 2 Price Mount Drive. Some ideas and thoughts were brought back. They were calculated, determined, and as long as these changes are going well with administrative review, Carlos, they'll move forward. Discussion item continued on the urban agriculture. that will continue and come back to us. And those are pretty much the most important things on the agenda that evening. Paul Martin did provide some a new regulation consideration for where urban agriculture will go. And Carlos presented that to the body. There was no discussion on that. They're going to look it over. And from what I understand, Paul, you're going to be attending a future PCDC meeting.
That's my understanding too.
That's it.
Does anybody have any questions for Councilmember Waldman? So let me see if I understand this correctly. They're still discussing this. So are we not ready for this to go to our March workshop then?
For the urban agriculture?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that like Carlos and I had spoken that it would still go back to the council. I think there were questions that the council members had. So yeah, I was planning on it coming to your meeting on next week.
If I could go ahead, Barbara, I know that you're hoping I would chime in here a little bit, because I'm the one that will probably be expressing my concerns so far. And I think we should have our conversation while PCDC is having their final conversation as well. There are quite a few things I want to bring back and bring up and discuss as council on this particular urban farming matter.
Can you extrapolate on that and just tell us
Sure.
what that is?
Sure.
What exactly are they discussing still? I guess I was under the impression this was done.
Done at what level?
All of it. It was done. They were supposed to have had the last bite of this apple.
They had a pretty busy meeting the other evening. It was a rather long meeting. They did just begin to see Paul's ordinance, and Paul's not ordinance. You're creating a new little subsection in the chapter. And they didn't get the opportunity to have that dialogue. Paul wanted to have conversation with them on it. So, you know, Paul's bringing this in and looking.
But
What is can somebody elaborate on that? What is this, Paul, that you're bringing to
The
them?
current regulations regarding urban agriculture, Paul Martin wants to create it up into its own little subcategory under chapter 440, Paul?
I do
I have
not
my notes in front of me.
don't recall the chapter, but basically it was just taking the substance of what had been written down and, you know, putting it into a process that I thought made more sense and was more clear. There were a couple of substantive issues the last time PCDC talked when I was in the room. We were going to explore those issues and get back to them. Having a discussion with the council, I think in March would be helpful. And I don't think that's, you know, inimical to what PCDC is doing in any way. And I think it might be helpful to them as well. So
Yeah, Paul's creating a new chapter 445. I'm creating a new section. And so the body had not looked that over yet and had not had a conversation with them.
But my understanding of that is that you created a new section, but that it wasn't, I didn't think substantially different from what they had been talking about. And it didn't look substantially different from what they had been talking about. There was some changes, but.
the changes were more process than anything else. And how do you deal with people who have existing urban agricultural features when you're bringing in a new system, and how you work through that process? And I think that's primarily the changes that I was trying to get squared away, and I don't think anybody had the opportunity to really take a look at those and have a discussion about those.
I guess it was my recollection, though, that the council wanted anything that had to do with grandfathering to stay at the council level. Am I misrecollecting that? That we didn't want that to go back to the planning commission, that we wanted to deal with it at our level?
I don't think they're dealing with the grandpa clausing at their level. That is staying at our level. And that's part of the conversation, along with chickens and
it's,
all the other materials that Carlos has put on the website with regards to what is our final regulation going to look like with language. And I have my issues with regards to chickens.
I'm
I
con-
have,
I'm confused. How can there be a final regulation that's going to be put online when we haven't even all finished discussing this yet?
I didn't call it the final, I said when.
I didn't hear the
when.
when.
Okay.
I apologize.
Sure,
I did
sure.
not-
Sure.
Go ahead, Maxine.
Yeah. And then I myself want to bring some things out to the council. I have done my own research. I have looked at all the documents that Carlos has put on our website, the languages and of other municipalities close to us, languages of other cities. And I want to have that serious discussion for the final, what will be in that language. Because, you know, I'm hearing what's coming out and I'm seeing what's coming out of the conversation with PCDC. I still feel that there's conversation I need to have as a council member with regards to this urban planning, urban farming.
Okay,
So,
all right. I'm-
I think
you
we're
want
best
more
off just talk,
examples or
this was gonna
what?
be a topic on, is that something keep flashing behind me?
I don't know.
I think that we were having this on, I had planned to have it on the agenda to next Tuesday for a work session, and I think that's just where we need to take this up.
Yep,
And yeah, it's not on the agenda tonight, so.
that's fine. I just wanted to understand what they were working on so that we get more of that feedback about what is it they're working on and what are some of their thoughts too.
Mhm,
And that's fine. Missy can share all of that with us on Tuesday.
mhm.
Does anybody have any questions for Councilmember Waldman? All right, yes, go ahead, Max.
Missy, when you referred to stuff online, the only stuff online I've seen has been in Carlos's minutes.
Carlos has created an excellent page.
Okay,
Really,
but we're not, when you said resolution, he's not put any
no,
resolution on
I
it.
didn't mean resolution. I didn't have my
Okay,
notes in front of me. Regulations. If I said
Okay,
resolution, I meant regulations. And it's,
okay.
The
Well,
drafts are online.
Okay,
And that's
thank
what's
you. That's the
online.
clarification I
The
wanted.
material that's gone to the planning commission is online.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
So it is online. Oh, okay, so it is online.
The
wait a minute.
material, just like any other,
Okay.
Weave's created a little site for the urban agriculture. It's got the past, it's got the documents that have gone to just like you could get it through their agendas. But we just put it in this.
Okay.
it has
area.
everything back to Barb's letter to us when we began.
You guys
to
saw
have
this. We used it.
conversation.
I brought it
Thank
in at the
you.
last couple of
Yeah.
meetings.
Okay,
guys saw
thank
it.
you.
Yeah. Okay, if there are no other questions for Councilmember Waldman, I'd like to share with you the pension board meeting of February the 5th. The pension board discussed a revised contract with Marquette. It's been quite a while since they had increased their fee to us for the management of the pension trust. And the pension board has recommended approval of the new amount. And that new contract will be on our March 9th meeting agenda. As of December 31st, the pension trust was valued at $24,050,083. As of February 1st, it was valued at $24,009,721. We have $9,295,992 at the principal and $14,713,279 at Vanguard. The topic of alternative investments and private placement was also discussed. And Brian Gooding, who is from Marquette, introduced a possible alternative investment to the pension board. And he suggested that we consider investing $1.5 million into a private equity group called Partners Group. And they invest in small companies and other investments that would not normally be found in a traditional investment or financial setting, i.e. stocks and bonds and mutual funds. But in order for the pension trust to qualify for this investment, the trust would have to have a net worth of 25 million. So we're under the threshold to be able to even participate at this point in time. but it is something that the group is looking at. But the other issue that they're going to have to take up is that the investment policy would need to be modified to allow for this type of investment. And the pension board is aware of that they would need to make that change, and that change would strictly be a recommendation, and that recommendation would then come to the council. And then we would have to approve that change before the investment could be made. They do know that they will discuss that in future meetings, certainly if they want to move forward with this alternative investment. I have also been sitting on the park meetings for the new community center, and we have had several meetings to discuss the furnishings for the community center, which has been very, very interesting. And it's interesting, that's all. So I'm looking forward to seeing, how it all gets put together, and looking forward to the building being completed. And that is what I have from there. On February the 18th, we had a St. Louis County Metro Municipal League meeting, and we went through an entire slate of legislative agendas. There are several bills in the legislature right now. One of them is TIF. It's going to become, if it's passed, it becomes very restrictive. The other is HB 920, which that's being promoted by Representative Baker. It would require that all elections take place in November. It is out of the Rules Committee, and I do not know where it is at this particular point in time, but I do know that. Some of the other ones of note, HB 76 is on police reforms. That is moving along too. And then there are the Wayfair bills. There are 3 Wayfair bills. There's Eggleston's, which is HB 554 and 555. The league opposes that bill. It's very cumbersome, and it has limitations on TIF, CID, and it eliminates the video franchise fee. There's also Representative Faulkner's bill, and that's one other Wayfair bill. And then there's in the Senate, there's Crawford and Koenig's bill, which the league is supporting. In addition to which, the video franchise bill is moving along, and they have asked for clarifications from the representatives who are authoring these bills to talk about the definition of uses inside some of these bills. That's where some of the mayors in the county are having heartburn, where it relates to the definitions of the uses of the bills. So there is a lot going on right now in Jefferson City. Some of these we really are watching closely, Wayfair being one of them, and the video franchise, but also this elections HB 920. So that's it. I know I just said a lot of words. Yes, Greg.
Just for the public, Madam Mayor, you might want to say what the Wayfair bill is.
The Wayfair bill, thank you. The Wayfair bill is a bill that would allow the state of Missouri, which is one of the last few holdout states, to charge sales tax on internet sales. And there are thousands and thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being missed by the state of Missouri in terms of sales tax revenue that they could collect if in fact Wayfair were in place. But it is not that simple. It's not quite that simple. There's a lot of nuance to this, and I could spend the next 40 minutes talking about the nuance. It has a lot to do with use tax. Not every municipality in the county has a use tax. Some of these Wayfair bills would require those who do have a use tax to pass the use tax again. Those are the ones we oppose. It's very cumbersome. But in order to be able to have Wayfair to be able to benefit from capturing the sales tax revenue, every city would have to have passed a use tax. And so that would have to go to the voter. It's It is, they're tackling a lot out there. And there will be a lot of legislation that will need to be changed in order for Wayfair to actually become a reality. Even if it passes, there are other things that have to change at the same time. So, you know, I think if we're going to get Wayfair across the finish line, this is the year in which it's going to happen. I think everyone's eyes have been opened up quite widely to the fact that internet sales in a year of a pandemic have been huge, and that the brick and mortar stores, while they've suffered all along, sometimes silently, and to that loss of revenue that they get from internet sales, but the state not necessarily recognizing it as much as they should have. I think everyone's eyes are wide open right now as to what has been going on for this past year. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I do know that we have the league. When I say our, I mean the league. The league has people out there working really hard to make it happen. That's it.
I have a question.
Sure.
And maybe it's not, I'm sure it's not to be answered tonight, but the question I have is in hearing about the conversation of a new form of investing, if we're at the 25 million mark, and let's just say we go there and then things happen and we get underneath the 25 million mark with our investment, what happens then? And I'm not asking for that answer now. It's just what came to me in curiosity, you know, down the road.
I don't.
Yeah, I know you don't know. I'm saying that would be a future question I'd like asked at your pension board, you know, in having the discussion.
It
Because
is.
we've seen us go below that before, Ruth, in our lifetime as elected officials. And I hope to God it doesn't, but that's just a curious question down the road.
Well, it's not, it doesn't have the same ramifications as if we drop below the floor of the pension at principal. But I would think that once you're invested, you're probably invested because it is a fairly illiquid
Right.
investment. And being illiquid, actually, we can't pull any money out for a year. So I would suspect that they're not going to dump you out if we drop below 25 million, that once you're in, you're in. That's just that's my off the top of the head answer, but it makes the most sense. They're not going to dump people out if they drop below. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes, but that is the conversation from the pension board. All right. If there are no further questions, we'll move on. Next item, please.
Item number 5, monthly finance report, January 2021.
Hello, Mr. Mann.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Speaking of cautiously optimistic, I got really good cautiously optimistic news for tonight as we go into our budgeting season and what it looks like for some of our sales taxes, use taxes, what we're going to be looking forward to. If we're talking tonight on the up to the month ending January of 2021. And with that, we talked a little bit last month, but we did see some of our sales taxes go pretty low. We did ended the month 12,547 below expectations, and that is the first unfavorable variance on the year on the sales tax side. On the expenditure side, we've continued the trend of being below expectations of $159,000 this month. Net favorable variance of $146,688. Though sales tax category, even with the slide, was really no longer able to prop up those shortfalls in those other categories. We'll talk about those here in a second. Bigger picture, the revenue policy is still showing good, strong compliance. That shows up on that second page. Before we get there, the dashboard though does show kind of where we're at with the year, 61% either in the general fund and kind of any of those broadly used between sales tax and property tax collections like capital improvement fund. The stormwater parks fund fire operations, you can see they're right at about 60%, and that's right where we'd expect them to be this year, with 7 months down in that fiscal year. And then on the pension, debt service, and construction, those are primarily real estate tax funded. And those are all in line, about 80 something percent. We expected them to be higher. We'll talk about that in a second too. But before that, we can see that reserve policy analysis is showing good, strong compliance at 3.3 million. We expected to be at just a little over 3 million, so good positive variance there. Like I said, sales taxes are tempering after several months of actually record months of sales tax collections. It does remain above above expectations overall. We did see it fade out, and we will see that fade out in February again. Like I bet we'll see a chart. Property taxes are under expectations, and it is because we're once again in an elevated protest payment situation. Overall, if we look at the chart of all of the cities that have property tax, we're 5th on the list. And so that's about where we've been the last couple of times. That is a little unusual for a non-assessment year. We'll see what that means going forward. Usually those protested payments are released to us in May, sometime that one, I think last year was in June or maybe the year before. And then as those protests go work their way through the state tax court over the course of several years, we get back charged, and we see that in that prior year line item rather than that current year. So I do expect our property taxes to make budget. We get to pay the piper at some point in the future on how those protested payments work their way out.
What do you mean by
utility tax
on the list?
Yeah, we're 5th highest. Sorry, we're 5th highest in total dollars of protested payments.
Okay, thank you.
Utility tax collections are right at expectations, which is unexpected. And that's the first time we've seen that in quite a while. And the detail there tells us that the water collections were a little bit ahead of where we expected. And also our telecom receipts are where we expected. Now, albeit we need to keep in mind that those were much lower expectations, but now they're at least meeting those lower expectations. Those remaining categories are showing mixed results, I'll say. The permits kind of tempered out some of the other ones outside of Parks and Rec, but as those Parks and Rec revenues continue to struggle with some of those pandemic related restrictions, we can see court kind of recovering as they are holding court virtually now and kind of working through some of that stuff. On the Parks and Rec side, we see lower costs in there too, and that's something we'll kind of go through our learning point for this month. But despite these, on the expenditure side, despite these positive variances, large positive variance in expenditures, there's no department that's kind of shining that says here's why. There's no kind of category that's pointing to here's why outside of the community center and the recreation department. And those two, it says along there, but those two alone account for 110 out of the $159,000 below our expectations. Now that is because the revenue is also down. It's just a byproduct of not being able to offer programs. So if we were to kind of take that into account, it tempers kind of where we're at a little bit. We do see also the final thing before we look at our charts is the budget amendments that we approved in January are reflected in this reporting here. Those were all in the capital improvement fund and some of the transfers in the fire operations. We're going to go to the next page, which is a chart of our sales tax we've been looking at every month. Going to see a really good example of finding a variance that we just talked about with Parks and Rec. At this chart, our orange, we can see it kind of really spikes out there in September, way at the top, and now it's kind of tempered out. It's remained high in its given month, but then in January, which is what we're reporting here, you see it was our lowest January ever, and now we do have February numbers, and they are also near the lowest that we've ever seen, second lowest there, only to 2016. These numbers, again, I'm not sure it means a whole lot to us, other than it says bad things could be happening on the chart itself. It's something we're paying attention to again this month, and not that it's going to parallel in any way to what we were going through last year during budgeting, but it's something that we're definitely going to pay attention to as we go in. Again, we're right at our expectations for our budget at $12,000. That's what the chart looks like, and that's about all what it's telling us right now. Over time, we'll know more. The other thing that the mayor just mentioned with our use tax is we will see that temper off too. We received I didn't know this, or I would have included a chart with it. We received $23 in use tax this month. Usually we receive about 200,000. So a little research in there. We had a huge refund of our use taxes, and by one particular person that was remitting, or is a business, and so it tells us about what we would expect in the future. It will show up pretty bad in the month. I don't expect the use tax and sales tax category to maybe get very much better for next month. That's all I'll say for that until we know more. But I want to go through something with the expenditure side of a really good example of finding a variance. So we identified $159,000 variance in our expenditures, and we can go to the next page for things. And we can see where we were. Oh, sorry, $146,000 total, $159,000. It's the very bottom right green number is what I'm talking about here, and it's in that expense category. Up 3 numbers there. See $159,000 plus, which is positive, and that's good. Now here's our category, and the first time I go through when I look at is if 80% of our costs are in personnel. Did we mess up on our budgeting, or we just not buying stuff we thought we were going to? And so we can see here in the personnel costs, they're spot on, $517,000 positive variance on $3.8 million in costs. And this includes a lot of things like all of our payroll taxes, payroll, health insurance, all that stuff. Between those, that 5,100 personnel costs and other personnel costs, this is our training, it's all kind of employee costs. And we're within $6,000 on, again, almost $4 million. That's pretty good. I'm comfortable with that. We can see down there that it comes in those other categories. So nothing there is saying, we messed up on our budgeting necessarily. But if we go to the next page, it breaks it out then, not by category, but by department. And in that case, we can see maybe where it's that, second column from the right. You can see where in the heck is this going on. And we can see right there in the 4th line down and the 3rd and 4th line, they're big numbers inside of that. And those are fairly explainable. When we get in the detail for this is way in the back. And if we go in there, it's things like uniforms and things like referees for our sports programs. And that's why we're seeing these big variances in there. And we can see that on the revenues, they're down also. So there's kind of my little clues on where to go in there and find variances. That's all I have to say, though. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain those, or if we want to see more information going forward, it's fine too.
Does anybody have any questions for Darren? Not a question, no questions? I do have one question for you, Darren. So when a protest happens and somebody protests their taxes, they're not simply protesting the Olivet portion of the taxes, are they? They're protesting all of their taxes. We just happen to know that they're protesting our portion. Or can they simply protest our portion?
Paul Martin, our city attorney, knows much more about this, but no, you're really protesting your assessment. If I am really getting down to the brass tacks here, we're protesting the assessment.
Your assessment.
That translates to a tax and to a dollar.
That's correct.
You can't protest the amount of taxes you pay. You protest the assessment.
Right. So the assessment, and then that every taxing jurisdiction then is notified that that individual is protesting that tax. Gotcha. Okay. I understand now. Got it.
It's more like we just don't get the money and then they release a report later, but it goes back, it's potato, maybe. We don't really get notification. We just don't get the money. They hold it, I assume, in a special, there's a lot of rules on it, but yeah, they hold it for us.
Okay. I just wanted to
through the process.
Wanted to clarify that it is the protesting of the assessment and it impacts all the taxing jurisdictions. Okay. Is there anything else? I think that one thing that I do want to, I guess, just obviously the alert here for me is that the sales tax revenue seems to have gone a little wonky. But I'm sure that, well, one of two things will happen. It'll either continue to be wonky or this is some sort of aberration. And next month, things will be back on the upswing.
I can only hope that our economic data broadly and nationwide is going to translate into an increase there. I think the important thing here, I'll go back to last year, we have our reserve policy. We're getting the information. I hope you're getting the information you need to get comfortable with where we end up with budgeting for the next year. Whether it be looking at that chart and coming to an agreement on what we would say could or would happen. And that's, I'll make an informed guess. Barb will make it go up a little bit because I'm too conservative, and then you guys can, say whether you agree with that or not. So that's, I think, the process of where we go now.
Okay.
The worst thing we can do is surprise you in next month with a chart that looks like that. And like, holy cow, what are we gonna do?
I have a little bit unrelated question for you. The 10-year has really taken off. So are you watching our reinvestment ladder, and are you doing any reinvestment? Because the 10-year has risen incredible. It's been incredible.
Right. We did see the yield, the curve has steepened, on the belief of a long-term recovery. However, our one year treasury note rate, which is what we usually look at, is like 0.06.
Okay.
So it's really shallow, but then it does steepen. You're right. Yep.
Okay. I also think
our longest available is 5 years. That's up per our investment policy. So we don't get involved in anything over 5.
I also think the 10-year is reacting to inflationary concerns. That's my personal opinion. So, okay. All right. Anybody else?
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Darren. Next item, please.
Item number 6, hearing from citizens.
If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council, kindly raise your hand and the city manager will bring you over. The drill is, please state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Mr. Koenig has his hand up. I'll go ahead and bring him over.
Okay.
You should be able to talk now. We should be able to hear you. Thank you.
Larry Koenig, 1131 Hilltop. I'd like to call the council's attention something that was brought up at the February 1st PCDC meeting in February about the Opus Group. They were asked why they did not include the homes in Hilltop as part of their development. And their reply was the homeowners on Hilltop wanted too much money for their property. So we decided just to go with Irvington and Rayham. I live on Hilltop adjacent to the development, and I was never approached by the Opus Group. The first time I heard about the development was when I got the form letter that said that they were going to have a Zoom meeting to explain the project. Now in 2019, Laura Ragsdale had brought around a real estate agent who claimed that she was representing several home builders who were interested in redeveloping the area. And would I be willing to sell my property? I asked how much are they willing to pay for the property? And the agent replied, you set your own price and the developer will take it from there. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'm willing to sell. In June of 2019, she let me know that things were moving forward and would I be willing to sign? And I said, sure. And she asked for the price and I sent her the price. She said, I'll send you the paperwork. I was expecting to get an actual sale contract. All she sent me was a listing agreement for 1 year. And in that listing agreement, when I read the fine print, I found out I was going to have to pay her 6 or 7% commission on the sale. Well, when I saw that, I called her back and I said, I can't pay that commission. Isn't the purchaser going to pay it in a deal like this? Because that's, usually what's traditional in these buyout situations. She said, no, you have to pay me my commission. I said, well, then I want to raise my price that I'm asking to cover your commission. And I did. And I sent in the listing agreement, and I never heard another word after that. So with Opus saying they approached me, approached the owners on Hilltop, I was not ever approached. And I just wanted the council to know that they're not giving the right story and the correct story on what went on. And another thing about the development that was brought up at that meeting was that some of the PCDC members asked about the grades of the property back there. And they said that there's a 17-foot difference in elevation between the elevation at the north end at Alice Place and between that and the southernmost corner of the property. So they asked, well, how are you going to overcome that? And they said, well, we're looking at the possibility of having to build retaining walls. Now, that property has to be flat for that size building. So even if they can drop it 8.5 feet at Alice Place end, that still means it's going to be out of the ground at this end 8.5 feet. And then on top of that, having it's just going to really be unsightly for those of us that are left here. And I really think the council should not pass it and approve this development once it moves further along. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koenig. I want to state for the record that when Opus came to those homeowners there, they did so without the city's knowledge or without the city's blessing or anything that had to do with the city, because that was a private transaction between all those people. So the city was not necessarily aware of who they were talking to, what they were offering, and how they were going about doing it. Those sorts of things can happen inside the city, and we can be unaware of that until they come to the city for one of several purposes, either to present a plan to the city for approval, or if they come and ask us for some sort of financial assistance. And the bottom line is that there would have been no way for us to know that you were or were not contacted, because we weren't being asked to be kept in the loop because we are not a party to that transaction. So I'm very thankful that you came and you told us that. I just want you to know there was no way for us to know who was being contacted. Barb,
Yes.
did you want to say something?
Okay. The one thing that with regard to this project is that the actual assemblage of those properties wasn't done by the developer Opus. Opus is working with the entity that had assembled those properties. And so it's just another, it doesn't make any difference to Mr. Koenig's
Right.
issue, but I'm just letting that be known.
Right. It's convoluted in that regard, Larry, but I really want you to know that this was at the outset a private transaction that the
Oh,
city
I understand that.
had hands in. And I know you understand how this works. This is not your first rodeo.
No, it's not.
No.
And as far as me, on my previous dealing with I guess it's probably the same agent who tried to approach me before, and she still was holding listing agreements. My listing agreement expired after 1 year, and I was never approached to renew it. But as far as me asking what I'm asking for my property, my house is the exception to all of the properties back there. My house is 4 bedrooms, 3 full baths. Everything back there in Raham Court, 90% of those are 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom homes and single story. Mine's a 2-story house. So as far as, it just shows Opus is just trying to take a shortcut. They didn't try and look into the deal and do due diligence to see, if they were told by this listing agent how much I asked the first time around. She didn't give them the full story. And I think they're just trying to take a shortcut, take the quick, easy way out and shove this through. And I think the other reason they're trying to move so fast is I think their listing agreements are probably going to run out, and they may be getting worried that some of the owners back there are tired of this and they don't want to extend their listing agreements or their contract agreements past this next expiration date.
All right, well, I think that, I mean, I know I appreciate that you came and told us that. Obviously, all the information that we have is important for us to gather it and to understand it. And you know that you were always here. You can always come and talk to us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the council? All right, I don't see anybody else. Let's move on.
Item number 7, park improvement update and community center project authorization to begin document phase.
Mayor, I'm going to bring some folks over as panelists, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And I would just like to point out, I have yet to delete you from the meeting.
I noticed that. Larry went back and only Larry went.
And I've been practicing a steady hand here.
I don't know, though. This is multiple people. I could go back on this.
It's typically when I take them off, though, where I remove you. Tonight we have, you all know Beverly Tucker Knight, our Park and Recs Director. Katie Ahold has been our project manager with Navigate Building Solutions, and Joel Kirshen is the architect engineer working with KAI. He's been the lead on this project. Tonight, Katie's got a presentation for you. I'm just going to give you a little bit of make sure you pay attention to certain parts. Couple of things you're going to be asked tonight. You're going to be asked to to vote on authorization to enter into the construction document phase for the community center. And then we're going to seek some type of consensus to move to schematic design for the parks. The difference is, as you know, the community center is a little bit ahead in the process. And the reason I'd ask for an actual vote for authorization is this is kind of a big deal. And you could kind of go forward without even realizing that, wait, this is a big deal now. Now we're actually saying, draw up those documents so that we can build this. And from this day forward, any change gets another 0 or 2 added onto it. And that's Joel's fault. And no. And so we want to make sure that, you know, that both the public and we all understand that, you know, this is really kind of an exciting time. We're moving towards construction documents, which means we're months, not years away from getting that general contractor on board. The parks are a little bit different. You know, when we're moving from a conceptual design to a schematic design, we're still moving things around, right? And, you know, so we haven't pinned those down yet. So just like, you know, if there's a general consensus, I'll ask for those, we'll ask for those as we get at the end of Katie's presentation. And then Katie, you can just let the council know if you'd like questions as you move along in your presentation, or if you'd like them to wait to the end. That's up to you. And you should be able to have control of the screen.
All right, thank you, Barb. As she mentioned, my name is Katie Ahold, and I am a senior project manager with Navigate Building Solutions. Thank you all for having me here tonight. I'm going to share with you a presentation that we've put together that combines a few things that we have been working on over the past few months. We'll start there. So like Barb mentioned, our agenda for this evening is to recap the progress we've made to date, both on the community center and parks improvements. So we'll go through each of those tonight and talk about budget and schedule updates, and also next steps as they pertain to each portion of the work. So I will go through the community center portion of the presentation, and we can pause there if anyone has any questions. We can cover those before we take a look at the park improvements information. Also, as Barb mentioned, the goal of today's meeting is to obtain authorization to proceed to construction documents for the community center. And this will also include the scope of work for Warson Park, because this will all be bid out as one package to a general contractor. And then also to obtain the consensus to proceed to schematic design for the remainder of the park improvements. So starting with the community center, the last time we presented to you all was at the end of schematic design, which was back in October. At that time, we had established a floor plan for the community center that totaled about 27,500 square feet. We had made some minor adjustments to the overall square footage and dimensions of the building that increased slightly the lobby square footage and also provided for some additional storage for the gymnasium, all of which was included in this number. We also presented to you the exterior renderings and the materials selection for the exterior of the building. And we reestablished that we were tracking towards the budget that had been established for the Prop C vote at $10,677,000. And then again, just to show you kind of overall in the schedule, we are here. So we are progressing through our design phase. We've recently completed a cost estimate for the current set of documents, and we're ready to present that to you all tonight and request your approval to move into our next phase. So just touching a little bit more on what we've done since the last presentation back in October. We just completed what's called the design development phase of the project, where we've really worked to advance and refine the design that was established during schematics. So we've started to look at interior finishes and furnishings. We've had a lot of detailed discussions about the building systems, so the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection systems. We've spent a fair amount of time coordinating the scope of the community center and its associated site improvements with the remainder of the scope of work that's planned for Warson Park, as well as the Centennial Greenway. And we've initiated discussions with our authorities having jurisdiction and the Planning Commission just to make sure everyone is up to speed on the design progress, and we're gathering their input as we move along through the process. So early on in January, actually January 4th of this year, the design team issued out the design development drawings and specifications. From here, we entered into a phase of cost estimating, and also we were able to present this to the public and request their engagement towards the end of January on January 27th. So I believe most of you have seen these plans before, so just wanted to go through these again quickly tonight as a reminder of both the floor plan and exterior renderings of the building. So here you can see at this phase in design development, the floor plan is pretty well set. We have not made any major changes since last presented in schematic design. And again, some of the exterior views of the building, same materials and color palettes that you have seen before in the presentations. All right, this here shows the site plan for the community center itself. One thing that we've done throughout the last couple of weeks is develop kind of these color-coded plans that help describe the scope of work that is being completed now under the Proposition C work versus items that are still part of the Parks Master Plan but fall under the vision. So you can see here the community center and its improvements are outlined in blue. Park improvements for Warson are outlined in orange, and then the Centennial Greenway piece is actually outlined in green. So everything you see here in color will be a portion of the work that's completed with Proposition C, and the items in gray are those future items that remain in the vision plan. So project budget update. Like I said, we received the design development package back in early January. We took some time to put together a detailed cost estimate for that set of documents that we can compare back to the budget we had established with Prop C and also where we stood at the end of schematic design back in October. So happy to report that we are only showing a very slight variance of less than $2,000 on the construction budget line item. I did want to point out here, though, that though the variance is small, we've made some big sort of coordination efforts and refinements to the drawings. Like I mentioned, that coordination with GRG and also the park improvements. So we feel like we have a good handle and a good budget established for the site improvement scope of work. We've also made refinements to the mechanical systems design. We've had several detailed conversations about the building's occupancy and intended use of each space to ensure that those systems are being designed to support the use and function that the city intends for the space. We've also made some adjustments to our pricing for current market conditions and what we're seeing with material pricing for things such as wood and steel. Couple small changes on some of the other line items. I will note the professional services line item did go up. This was to complete some additional survey work that was required of the site for that coordination that I mentioned, both with GRG and the other park improvements. And then we did see the contingency go down slightly as we advance design and have more information to build our cost estimate. It's typical that that contingency decreases at this stage in the design. So overall, we are still tracking right along our budget that we had set up back previously, the $10,677,000. And one other note, we are carrying about $735,000 of construction contingency in the project at this time. Flipping over to schedule, we saw that timeline a few slides before. But right now we are getting ready to enter into the construction documentation phase, which we're anticipating will take us through May of this year, so lasting about 4 months. From there, we will enter into permitting, both with the local authorities for the city of Olivet and those that we need to touch base with at St. Louis County. For the months of July and August, we are anticipating our general contractor bidding and contracting and approvals through you all for those agreements, with mobilization happening August of this year, August 2021. We will have a couple of separate tracks of construction within our schedule, with the longest of those being the construction of the actual community center itself. We're anticipating about a 16-month construction duration for this scope of the work, which will take us through September of 2022. There will be some exterior plantings and site work that will follow this into the fall months to ensure that we are hitting the best time of year for those things to be installed. So with that, we are expecting final completion and occupancy of the new community center in November of 2022. We will be packaging some of the park improvements for Warson with the community center. So when we mobilize in August, you should expect to see some of the work to the south being completed right away. Some of that will be some connections and some walking trails that will be installed and reopened, hopefully by September or October, for park users to have access to while construction is going on in the northern portion of the park. And then we will also be under construction for the new maintenance facility. We're anticipating about a 5-month duration for this, ongoing from August through December of this year. There will be some follow-on work that happens after the occupancy of the new community center for demolition of the existing center, and then that will also allow us to complete the remainder of the Prop C work, which will include the splash pad. So community center next steps. As we've mentioned, we're looking for your authorization to proceed to the construction documents for the community center and maintenance facility scope of work. We would also like to continue the design development for Warson Park through construction documents, which we're aligning with one package with the community center. And then we will also be continuing to develop the list of owner procured scopes. So there are things that will fall outside of the general contractor's agreement that we are continuing to coordinate with the final design. And that includes things like the indoor playground, fitness, kitchen equipment, and furniture. So I will pause there for a moment if anyone has any questions related to the community center.
Anyone?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I might just ask that, again, for the public, if you would explain a little bit how, so we didn't see any of the numbers for the Greenway portion of this that you showed as part of this project, as far as the budget is concerned. So if you wouldn't mind explaining how we're working with GRG to complete that portion, I think, again, for people who don't follow this every day.
Sure. So there will be a separate agreement that is set up between the city of Olivet and Great Rivers Greenway for the construction of the Centennial Greenway through Warson Park. So it is being designed as a separate project with a separate funding source at this time. That project is just completed its 70% document phase. And we are getting ready to be onboarded as a construction manager for that portion of the scope as well. So our next effort will be to complete the cost estimate on behalf of GRG for that phase of work, which will all fall to the city to contract, but reimbursement and the funding source through GRG. And Barb, I'll let you correct me if I misstated any of that.
No, that's all correct. In fact, we actually have that agreement that was approved by the council in the Great Rivers Greenway. And so we're moving forward with that.
So just to be clear, though, the money for this is not coming out of Prop C. It has nothing to do
No.
with Prop C at
What will
all.
happen, how this will work is via the agreement is the city will manage once the greenway is fully designed and is ready to go for bid for construction. We're going to actually bid that with our work. And so the same general contractor will be doing both the greenway as well as the park and the community center. However, all finances will be kept separate. There'll be different separate agreements with that GC for that work. And then as we will also navigate, part of the agreement with Great Rivers Greenway is that the city can hire a project manager of our choosing. And obviously we're choosing Navigate Building Solutions, and Katie's going to be working again on that project with us. And so as we incur costs that are associated with the greenway, similar to how we do kind of a MODOC grant, we will incur the cost, we will pay, and then Great Rivers Greenway will reimburse us for those costs. And then we have something in place in case there's any change orders or things like that. And so we foresee this to be to run really smoothly. Katie and Beverly and I have been on the meetings and also Bruce McGregor have been on the meetings for the Greenway. And that started a few months ago, I guess, I think. So Navigate's been on board with this project, and we've been on board with the Greenway project since they started the engineering.
How are we putting out the bids for this? Are they put out on our website, or how do you reach out, to find the contractors to work on this project?
Do you want me to answer that, Katie, or do you want to?
Either way.
Okay, I'll start and you can correct me. We'll put out, these bids will go out on, it will be on our website where how you can get the documents. These are going to be big documents though for people to look at, so they'll be through, I guess Joel can add on here. Where people will be able to download these documents so that they can get good cost estimates. They'll find their own subs. They'll come in with kind of a full team with this. These types of projects get picked up by entities whose kind of main job is to just advertise this type of work to general contractors. And so is there anything, with road projects, I know there's something else you do, but with these kind of building projects, is there anywhere else you would specifically send this, Joel or Katie?
Yeah, we typically keep a kind of database or running list of the general contractors that are qualified for this type of project. Navigate manages, multiple projects in the municipal market on a yearly basis. And typically we see a lot of the same bidders that pursue this type of work. So we've already started to notify those general contractors that would be a good fit for this project, that this will be bidding later this summer. A lot of them like to have it on their radar so that they can plan resources in advance to be sure they have kind of that time available to commit to the bidding effort. So we do a lot of kind of reaching out to those general contractors, as Barb mentioned. It will be on the website. We also submit information to a lot of the online plan rooms. So there are many websites and different online resources that track these projects that become a resource for general contractors to go to as well.
No, I was asking that only because I just want to make sure that this project is got a diverse mix of contractors, women-owned contractors, minority-owned contractors, because we are in a very diverse city. And I wanted to make sure that, we have an equitable share of contractors going out there. It just, it reflects the city that we lived in. I just want everybody to have an equal chance at this. That's why I asked.
Sure. And as we develop what we call the front end documentation for the project, that are all those kind of specific requirements that have been developed by the city, we can include any goals that you all may have for, minority and women owned business participation. So that's something that we'll work through Barb to make sure we're correctly capturing the city's overall goals.
Barb, do we have any set aside just yet?
We don't have, the city on its own does not have its own DBE goals. And when we do road projects, those goals, we do have DBE goals that are set really with MoDOT. Now, one of the things with this project, because we're bidding it with GRG does have DBE goals, so that we've agreed that we would incorporate those. So we will be looking for subcontractors and general contractors with the desire of meeting a specific goal for disadvantaged business in women-owned businesses.
Okay, so Hispanic and women-owned businesses?
Yeah, it would be the all of the alphabet soups that now there's the women, is it WBE?
WBE, yeah.
DBE,
right.
there's another one. I'm not thinking.
MBE?
I apologize.
MBE, WBE, DBE.
MBE,
Yep.
right.
Okay, and so in that case, so if I'm hearing you correct, yes, we do have some sort of goal for this project.
We will, yes. I can't tell you what that is because I'm not sure. Great
But
Rivers
we
Green
will.
Me, Great Rivers Green Me has sent me what they do and how they identify their goals. And we have talked, because of how we're doing these projects together and because of the TAP grant, we've talked about using those. So it's kind of an exciting time for the city to be kind of doing this project, because when we did the community center, or the city center, we didn't have those kind of goals.
Okay, thank you.
Katie, I'd like to ask a question. Barb, could you go back to the schematic that shows the internals of the community center? Thank you. Thank you. Is there a way to enlarge it to my focus is going to be just asking for recollection. When we first set up for the locker room, I still call them powder rooms for the men and women, boys and girls. The council had conversation with regard to the type, whether it be kind of like unisex. There was supposed to be looking at some of these locker rooms and some of the other community centers that were around. What did we end up with in our locker room, restroom areas? Is it a unisex? Is it one side, one side the other?
Yeah, so we did end up with what we're calling changing suites. So these are gender neutral changing facilities, each kind of single hole toilet here to the front, four that are toilet only, and then the 4 to the back are showers. So they are gender neutral. It is just a suite for individual use.
Thanks, I just could not recall. That's it.
But before we move off, Beverly reminded me, KAI and DTLS both meet KAI is the engineering firm, I believe, minority owned. Is that correct, Joel?
That is correct.
And DTLS is a women-owned business.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move into the parks portion of the presentation. Right. So again, just a little bit of a recap from the last time that the parks concepts have been presented to you. I believe Barb actually did this back in December. The concepts considered topography, existing assets and infrastructure, trees, as well as other planned park improvements. So for example, the GRG trail in both Warson and Indian Meadows. With that, we reviewed the program opportunity areas, proposed park circulation, and really kind of layered all of this information into what was already established with the parks master plan. We looked at both the short-term and long-term program elements that are budgeted in Prop C, as well as those vision considerations that will be items incorporated into the parks in the future. Again, looking at the timeline, we are nearing the end of the concept phase and ready to move on into schematic design and design development for each of these parks. As I just touched on, I put in an example here for Irv Zide Park, just to show you kind of the layers of information that were reviewed and compiled to create each conceptual design. So these color-coded diagrams represent things like areas of steep or moderate slope versus flat slope on topography, where existing trees are, the health condition of those trees, whether or not they should be considered for long-term planning in the park, or if there are trees that are in not healthy condition that we should remove as part of the project. We also looked at existing assets and infrastructure, so things like restroom facilities, pavilions, or even walking paths that are in good condition. We overlaid those with the planned improvements to generate what we're calling program area opportunities, or really those ideal locations in each of the park to plug in the new elements. We also considered greatly the proposed park circulation. We know that continuous walking loops and the ability to access kind of wide areas of these parks is very important. And again, we always went back to what was considered during that 2018 master plan effort that has been adopted by the city. So the park concepts, the conceptual design package was issued out in the middle of December. This was primarily put together by DTLS with support from KAI and included a detailed design for each of the parks. The way these were set up, they were tagged drawings that made reference back to a design manual where a greater description of each scope element was provided that we could use for the basis of a cost estimate. So Navigate and the design team worked together to create a conceptual cost estimate that really looked at each individual program element for each park. We took these elements, aligned them back to the budgets that had been established with Prop C, and then really found it important to develop visuals to identify current Prop C work from future envision. So an example you saw previously for the community center, current scope is shown in color and future scope is shown in gray, really just to differentiate and to provide that visual identity to what work is considered current. We were able to do some public presentations and engage with city residents on these park plans, and those meetings were held on January 27th and February 9th. I'm going to run through quickly now each of the park concept plans. I'm going to kind of go through at a high level just to refresh the concepts that have been developed by each park, starting with Indian Meadows. This one has actually been split into two areas due to the kind of overall length of the park. Area 1 is the portion of the park to the west that actually connects over to Warson Park. Here you can see the planned improvements by Centennial Greenway actually pick up a good portion of this particular park. We do have some phase 1 planned improvements around the playground area, which will provide some additional walking paths and reconnect some circulation, as well as provide an additional landscape buffer between the pavilion and the existing residents. Area 2 of the park is to the east, and again, you'll see Centennial Greenway will provide a great amount of improvements to this portion of the park. Prop C improvements highlighted in orange will pick up some additional walking paths that will create a loop in the kind of the heart of this park. We will also provide a secondary connection into the park in this area to the south. There are planned improvements that include a playground and nature water play area, and potentially some installation of sculptures along the walk as part of an art element. Next, I'll walk through Stacy Park, again separated into two areas, with area 1 being the prairie to the north. This is an existing prairie. The Prop C scope of work will cover removal of invasive species and kind of prairie restoration in terms of native plantings. It will also provide additional walking paths and ADA accessibility through this portion of the park, and will enhance the service drive to the east portion of this area of the park as well. I think the last item that we're completing in this area is some upgrades to the existing water feature. To the southern portion of the park, we are looking at a revised and improved parking lot. So one of the goals of this is to decrease the conflict between pedestrian traffic and vehicle traffic, to create a more safer arrival series and circulation within the park. We also plan to install a new pavilion and restrooms, as well as some more walking trails that will provide a full loop, allowing access around the athletic fields. This is the concept for Villa Park. The planned improvements for Prop C again include supplementing the existing walking paths with new paths and also providing a neighborhood connection. We do plan to both enhance and expand the playground in this particular park, as well as add in a splash pad, remove some invasive species, and install new native plantings. For Warson Park, again, area 1 is that northern piece that we looked at with the community center. Those improvements are shown in blue, which includes the new parking and drop-off associated to the community center, and some areas of stormwater management and bioretention. The Centennial Greenway will construct the areas shown in green, and then the areas shown in orange are currently under the park improvements budget. So this includes a new kind of branch of the north-south connection and ADA accessible walks that will actually take you from the existing community center all the way up to the new community center. So here you can see the southern portion of the park. The new walks will extend around the athletic fields and tie back into the greenway system to the north. We're also planning for the construction of the new maintenance facility in the southern portion of the existing parking lot, as well as a splash pad that is actually in the footprint of the existing community center that will be installed following the demolition of that building. So moving into the project budget update, the project budget established in Prop C was about 5.5 million. We've also been discussing some potential additional funding sources. Here we are actually showing that we are about $772,000 over what we had established as the budget for construction. So this takes into account some of the refinements we've made to scope. One of the things that we did during this process was review the most cost-effective location of the maintenance facility. And as you'll recall, actually moved this from the current location of the Park House down to the south due to the closer proximity to existing utilities, kind of lower requirements for site work, and to allow for the best alignment of the GRG trail. So this was something that had a positive impact to the budget. There are things like the demolition and abatement of the existing community center that are now packaged into this park's construction, which is an increased cost, as well as some increased costs that we're seeing for the parking lot at Stacy Park. On the professional services side, we are accounting for some additional dollars for some survey work that will include getting kind of the topographic detailed information that will be required to complete the design. So overall, we're sitting at about $562,000 over that original budget. I will point out that the budget at this time does include about $780,000 of contingency. It's a higher percentage, but kind of typical at this phase in the process to carry those extra dollars to account for refinements to the design as we move forward. So looking ahead, we are moving from the individual park concept designs into the schematic design and design development phases. We've mentioned the design documents for Warson Park. These will be aligned with our community center package so we can look at the work in that park holistically. For Stacy, Indian Meadows, Villa, Irvside, we will be moving into schematic design and design development, which will take us really through August and the summer, with construction documents taking us through fall. We're currently anticipating permitting and bidding to happen late this year, with mobilization in February of 2022 and work being completed by the end of 2022. I will point out that we've had some good discussions over the past couple of weeks about the design and construction schedule for these parks. We've talked about potentially accelerating some of the work even as early as beginning this fall of 2021 to really minimize that impact to the park users in 2022. So this plan is in progress and something that we're refining here over the next couple of weeks. In terms of next steps for the park improvements, our goal this evening is to obtain your consensus to proceed to schematic design for Indian Meadows, Irvside, Stacy, and Villa, with the understanding that cost savings opportunities need to be identified during this process to offset the current budget overage. We will also work to develop that design and construction phasing plan with key considerations for park usage and staggering of construction work. And that is what we have for you tonight on the park improvements, if anybody has any questions.
Are there questions for Katie?
I think it's incredibly exciting and I appreciate her thoroughness.
Anybody else?
Just to speak to a little bit of the elephant in the room, we realize that with the parks is currently kind of trending over budget. As Katie said, you know, we're early in the process. We're going to be looking at that. We're also talking with looking at, you know, what other funding will assist with so that we can kind of develop as much as possible in our parks. And so again, you know, a little early in, a little early in the process to have a lot of concerns about the overage, but definitely something that we're watching and we'll be addressing as we move forward. Currently, I think that it's not a negative number. It is a number with hugs is how it's been defined. If you just think about the, thank you.
If I could chime in on that, just to make sure I'm reading this right. I'm reading that we're already at 500,000 of the 70, 500,000 contingency, and we've put about 29,000 in contingency. Did I read something right or wrong there?
Yeah, so just to explain this one more time, the parks construction budget that you see at the 5,249,000, that has built into it the $779,000 worth of contingency. So we are showing that we are currently over budget, but we are carrying that contingency number. So typically, as we advance further into design of the project, where more of the details are drawn for us to put an estimate to, we decrease those contingency dollars. So it will be kind of a natural part of the process to fine tune the actual dollars associated to the construction and reduce that contingency.
Thanks, Katie.
Are there any other questions from Katie? I do know that there are a lot of grants available. I'm sure that Katie and Beverly and Barb are working on those too, to collect the list of grants and how much money might be available. I just know there's a fair amount of it out there for us from a park perspective. So I personally am not concerned about this at all. Having worked with Navigate before, they're magic. They're magicians. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. And this number does not concern me in the least. So.
I don't know if there's anything, if there's any more questions from the council or Beverly or Joel, if you'd like to say anything, or Darren too, he's been in on all the meetings as well. So I'm not sure if there's something you folks would like to add.
Nothing specific. I just want to say that I'm very pleased at the progress we've had so far, and this is an incredible time for what we're doing with our park system. I'm very proud of this project and the long-term benefits to the residents of Olivet. This really is something special. So I'm very thankful for the professionals we have on board with us. We have an amazing team, and this project is going to turn out incredibly well. So I thank all of you, everyone, for all of their hard work. Everyone has been spending so much time and care and attention to these plans. So I'm very thankful for that.
All right. If there is.
What exactly do we want to, sorry, what exactly do we want a motion for?
We could have a motion to authorize moving it to, a motion to authorize entering into construction document phase for the community center.
Do you only want that and not the one for the schematics, just the construction phase, Barb?
Just the construction.
Okay.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any final comments or questions? Hearing none, please poll the council.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Councilmember Weil,
Yes.
Chairman Clark,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
motion passed.
And then just in general, is there any reason or concern that you would have with us moving forward to schematic design with our parks? Which is just the opposite of saying, are we good? Do we have a consensus to move forward into schematic design on our parks?
Yeah.
I'm
Good with
fine with
that. We
that.
don't really need a motion on that, but is it?
I'm fine with
fine.
it.
All right,
Maxine, you're okay with that? Okay. We're good.
perfect. All right.
Thank you very much, Katie and Joel and Beverly, and to the, Joel represents a lot of folks on here tonight. They're, just so you know, KI is doing, they're working on the interior design, they're working on the furniture. They've done, the architecture, the engineering, the mechanical engineering. We had, a little bit of a scare a few weeks ago where we thought we were going to be over budget, and they, with mechanical, and they looked and worked it out, and you saw the results of that. And that wasn't, so a lot of good work being done by a lot of folks. So thank you.
It's a good team. Thank you.
Thank you.
None of
everyone.
them who wanted to spend their Tuesday night here, though. So.
Apologize, but thank you. We appreciate it.
All right,
right.
thank you. I'll be moving you back to attendees. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And I'll see you, Mayor.
Yeah. And as that's happening, can we move to the next item, please, Denise?
Item number 8, bill number 2945, an ordinance of the city of Olivet, Missouri, amending ordinance number 2716, an ordinance that amended ordinance number 2704 of the city of Olivet, Missouri, by revising the city's salary schedule. First reading.
I was attempting to amend as many ordinances in one fell swoop as possible. What we have here tonight, the salary scale, this salary schedule is approved by ordinance with the annual budget. And as you recall, you recently amended that budget when you approved ordinance 2716, and we moved, covered some expenditures for the parks and for fire, a couple of different things there. What this will do is it amends, essentially, we're amending the salary schedule, not the budget, but it's all part of the same ordinance. And what we're doing, what I'm recommending we do is currently, our planning and community development department had only had one planner, only had one planner when I got here, and that was Carlos, who is also the director. As things have been kind of kicking into gear, and one of the things is, and I will admit, I love a good planner. They can take on so many different tasks and look into so many different problems. And so we added a planner with a GIS component. And that worked out pretty well. And as we've been discussing kind of, where we're at right now, in the skills that we need, as we were kind of looking at the replacement of that planner, we really realized is we needed somebody that the planner position is someone right out of college. It's their first year, it's their first real job. And that's what it was with the prior person. What we really want now is someone who has a few years experience. And part of the reason is that, the success of having, I think, that first planner in place showed us what we can do. And I think that with a senior planner, also in the scale, we have the opportunity to really provide the planning director with some additional abilities to continue to look more into the future, and continue to look at some of the bigger projects that we have on. And so we created the senior planner position. You can think of it as a planner 1 or planner 2. And then we add the corresponding scale. We would like to be advertising the senior planner position, contingent kind of on obviously everything getting approved. But we do believe at this point in time to continue doing some of the
to not lose any momentum on so many of the projects that we have moving forward, our stormwater plan, the implementation of GIS with ArcGIS, and the number of different plans coming through. We really feel that this is a good time to get that other, fill that vacancy with a senior planner. There is money in the budget to cover that expense this year and into the next year. So I'm not concerned of it as a budget issue. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have. This was a conversation we had, a possible change. We knew, we talked about in general terms prior to the planner leaving. So this isn't like any kind of surprise to anybody who's just left our employ. So again, if you have any questions, happy to answer.
Anybody have any questions?
This is just a first reading as well, because again, it is a change of an ordinance.
Okay. No questions at this time? Okay, then we will move on. Thank you, Barb. Next item, please.
Item number 9, approval of the 2021-2022 Missouri Department of Transportation Traffic Enforcement Grants.
Chief Wolf will be joining and presenting on that.
Okay. Hello, Chief.
Hello, that was weird. I got kicked out for a second.
It happens.
It happens.
Yeah, Barb, good side.
I get it. I totally get it.
It happens.
So again, good evening.
Everyone's
And
a critic.
but before you is the request for the city to enter into the enforcement contracts with the State of Missouri Department of Transportation. These are the traffic enforcement grants that we typically get approval for this time of year. We participate in 3 of the grants, namely DWI enforcement, hazardous moving violations, which cover a variety of things: speeding, stop sign, illegal lane use, those types of things. And then the occupant protection grant. And those are the 3 that we do. The grants allow for officers to work overtime, and the grant covers that, and we get more enforcement on the streets. Included in the hazardous moving violations grant is also a request for 2 new radar units for 2 of the patrol vehicles. Those are the mounted units that go in the cars. And the request is that MoDOT would fund 75% of those, and the city would fund 25%. So the request is to get approval to do those. And I would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Further questions for the chief? Anyone?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the city of Olivet to enter into 3 traffic enforcement grants with the Missouri Department of Transportation, namely driving while intoxicated, occupant protection, and hazardous moving vehicles for $2,500, $2,500, and $9,321 respectively.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I do have one last question though for you, Chief.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
That's quite all right. This is a perfect time to ask. Remind me, please, how we do driving while intoxicated. It is my recollection that we do not do the
Checkpoints.
checkpoints any longer. Thank you.
Correct. Those have been ruled unconstitutional. And so we no longer participate in those. These are random roving patrols that officers participate in. And typically, we try to highlight the times of day and so forth, days of the week that we might see more of those types of drivers on the road.
Would you say if you have statistics, I'd be curious. Would you say that through this sort of police activity that you have in fact taken more people who are driving under the influence off the roads? Or do you find that the checkpoints were more effective irrespective of the fact that they were unconstitutional? I'm just more interested in how we get drunk people off the road. This is, of all the things that are my pet peeve, this is it.
Sure, no, and it's a great question, and really the reality of it, in my opinion, I think we take more drunk people off the road with random patrols like we're doing now than with checkpoints. You know, with social media, there are social media campaigns that are anti the checkpoints, and so you know, officers are out there probably an hour before the checkpoint starts, setting up the checkpoint with the cones and the generator and the lights and as people drive by, they are mass blasting out on social media, hey, beware, there's a checkpoint at Olive and Warson or Olive and, you know, whatever. And, you know, honestly, during the checkpoint period of about 4 hours, we would typically arrest maybe 1 or 2 intoxicated drivers. We would write a lot more tickets for other types of things, but I find that the random patrols are really more effective in my opinion.
And that is great. That's all that matters to me, is to get drunk people off the road before they kill someone or hurt someone. So I'm good. If that works, that's great.
Chief, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we have, I mean, what kind of safeguards do we have in place to keep high people off the roads with this influx with people who are just smoking marijuana? I mean, everywhere you go, it's just, it's everywhere.
And it's the same, you know, people here driving while intoxicated and they immediately think of alcohol. But the driving while intoxicated charge also covers those people who are under some sort of influence of drug too. You know, be it marijuana or something else. The intoxication is not solely alcohol. So this, you know, we're targeting those folks as well.
But isn't the difference, Chief, that for alcohol, you can either do the breathalyzer or you could do blood alcohol? I don't know what kind of immediate test you can do for somebody who has been smoking marijuana.
Sure. So some of the training that the officers receive is recognition of characteristics that somebody might be exhibiting while they're under the influence of marijuana or cocaine or some other, you know, if you have dilated pupils or, you know, even with the standard field sobriety tests, to look for the clues that we're not only looking for alcohol, but also drugs. So there is training that the officers receive to recognize those types of things as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
If there are no further comments or questions, please poll the council.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Councilmember Weil,
Yes.
Chairman Clark,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you guys very much.
All right. Next item, please.
Item number 10, youth baseball contract clinician.
Who is doing this for
Getting
us?
rid of, getting
Beverly?
Dave off, and
Um,
we will be moving Beverly
Okay, great.
back over.
Hello, Beverly. Welcome back.
Hello again. Good evening, council. Beverly Tucker Knight, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here this evening to ask for your authorization to enter into an agreement with the 314 Training Academy to provide a 6-week youth baseball skills clinic. This clinic will be modeled similar to the program we did in the fall for soccer, to meet the guidelines established by the county for youth sports. We released an RFP for this prior to the county updating the guidelines. So now the guidelines are lifted enough so that we could do a full league. However, we don't have staff in place to do that. So in lieu of that, we're doing the same thing that we did with soccer. We're going to offer a skills clinic. It'll reach the same age demographics of our usual program. And what's exciting about contracting with this agency is that the players will have time on the field, learning skills and being able to participate in a scrimmage. And then they'll also have an opportunity to go to the batting cages and do skills development at the 314 Training Academy. So each, they'll alternate their days between playing on the fields and then playing in the, doing the skills work in the batting cages. So that's a wonderful bonus for our players, because particularly with the younger kids that are just making that transition between T-ball and live ball pitching, having batting cages for them really can help them hone those skills better. So we're very excited about this. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the contract or the program or anything else.
Anybody?
Beverly, what's the number or the maximum of participants that could be with this T-ball based upon county stipulations right now?
Well, right now, the county has just recently lifted those guidelines, so we could have a larger groups of players, and I don't want to say what the number is because I'm afraid I'll be incorrect because
I
don't
want to put you in there. All right,
Yeah.
that's fine.
But you know, they did do some lifting of those youth sports guidelines over the summer, and then they had to crack down again. So even though they're lifted now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they would stay lifted through the duration of this program. So one of the stipulations we make in the contract is the vendor has to meet those guidelines no matter how they change, and they have to stay on top of it. And then we'll be monitoring that with them. So we're going to do this same system we did with soccer, where the parents screen the kids before they get to the field, and they sign the waiver of liability each day through the Google Docs to attest that they have done the home check with their children, and then they send them to the field. And then the vendor then also does all the screening of their coaches at the same time, every time that the kids go out.
Okay. And do the kids have to wear masks outside to do this?
They have to wear masks for part of the time. When they're actively playing, they do not. And then the spectators have to wear masks, and the spectators, each child's allowed 2 spectators, but they still have to be 6 feet apart. So we will be working on ways to accommodate spectators. Last time we used a barrier that the parents couldn't go past. So we'll probably be doing the same thing. And at both of our parks, we still haven't decided whether it'll be at Stacy or Warson, but at both of those parks, we're able to have an area for parents to be separate, but still be able to see the play. So that worked out well.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, I'll bring that back up. Let me grab it here. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I'll go ahead again. I authorize this. I make a motion to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with 314 Training Academy to provide a 6-week youth basketball skills clinic.
Baseball.
Oh, baseball, yes.
Well, it's a similar sport, smaller ball.
Ball's a ball, you know what the heck.
And he made the motion, really? Can we have a second?
Second.
You know what a baseball is, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, good.
Just learned last year.
All right, if there are no other comments or questions, please poll the council.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes, for whatever this is.
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes.
Councilmember Weil,
Yes.
Chairman Clark,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Beverly, for putting up with all this meeting. Thanks. All right. Next item, please.
Item number 11, hearing from citizens, part 2.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council? Kindly raise your hand and we will bring you over and you can address the council. All righty.
I
Seeing
don't see
none.
anyone there.
Okay. Next item, please.
Item number 12, review and approval of minutes.
Did anybody see anything that needs to be amended?
There was a slight little minor amendment that I provided to Ms. Mandel earlier today. It was a minor, but it affected the interpretation of the sentence. So I will make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as slightly amended.
I can,
Do we know what the amended is or not? Does it? We don't know.
Yes, it is the word if instead of the word it.
If instead of the word yet. Okay. Okay.
If instead of it in a particular sentence. IF instead of IT.
Okay, got it. All right. If that's it, it's been motioned and seconded. Please poll the council.
Councilmember Carl,
yes,
Councilmember Waldman,
Yes,
Councilmember Weil,
Yes.
Chairman Clark,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you. Next item.
Item number 13, city attorney's report.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor, just a reminder, the proposed order and the speech case is due on Thursday. It's shaping up pretty good so far. Don't have any concerns about getting it on file on time, and the court has pledged to make a decision within 2 or 3 weeks after that. So we'll have hopefully something on that shortly. I've got nothing else and no need for a closed session tonight.
Great. Will you need signatures on what you're submitting, or is that something that's entirely outside just our need to sign?
No, this is just something that I prepare and offer to the judge as you know, our order if he decides in our way.
Okay, great. Hopefully, fingers crossed that he does. That'll be great. All right. We are at the end of the agenda. If there's nothing else or no one else has anything else they need to bring up, I don't know what to do at this point. Usually it's a closed session. Okay, how do I end this meeting? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second.
Thank you. It's been motioned and second. This meeting is adjourned.
night,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Have a good night.
All right, thank you.